All right. Well, today is August the 1st, 2025, and we are going to jump into Bitcoin. We're going to look at this Bitcoin versus Ethereum chart, and we are going to dissect the recent price move from, 118K down to 115, a very critical level for the bulls to hold on to if we want to, defend that 115K mark. If not, the TA is showing that a pretty painful sell-off could happen, and we could come easily back down into 110K, and then perhaps even from there 100K retest, as we know that 100K level is a massive market psychology level. So let's start off. I'm actually looking here at Bitcoin divided by Ethereum. So this is essentially the ETH BTC chart, but the inverse. And one thing I really want to point out, because this is critical, right, for determining whether or not the altcoin market cap will outperform the Bitcoin market cap, and the Bitcoin dominance. This will dictate a lot. Um, what will happen with the Bitcoin dominance chart. So first thing you notice is this looks like a really solid blow off top right here. This is essentially Bitcoin buying 56 ETH, and now it only buys 31 ETH. So this is a pretty solid move here that we've seen. ETH outperforming Bitcoin after a long Bitcoin bull run. And this kind of looks like a classic blow off top, right? We've got like, I don't know if you can see this, but this is a really solid base of Bitcoin outperforming Ethereum. And then we've had this really solid run up like this. And we broke below the average right here. And then since then, we've had a one move, two, three, right? So I'm thinking sort of like an Elliott wave pattern where we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up, and then two waves down, 1, 2. So I'm looking for support on this BTC ETH chart. You can also probably spot a pretty clear trend line, 1, 2. And if you extend this out, you can see this is kind of the area where we're flirting with this trend line right now. So this would suggest that ETH is probably going to be outperformed by Bitcoin. I do think that perhaps it might take some time, but I am sort of a contrarian to this altcoin bull market, alt season, whatever you want to call it. I still think that Bitcoin is the safe haven asset in crypto. And especially if we have this bearish scenario where Bitcoin comes down and retests 100K, I think altcoins will eventually bleed out into Bitcoin, and we'll see massive Bitcoin outperformance as we've seen in the past. But I'm just wanted to show you what I'm looking at for this BTC ETH chart, because I think that this is a pretty solid base of support. If you take this horizontal trend here like this as well, you can see we have previous structure resistance 1, 2, 3. We broke above this level and we took off. So it makes sense for ETH to come and retest this level right here, which is where we're at currently at the 31, BTC to ETH level. And then the other thing is you can take a fib, right? You can say, okay, this is a clear top, right? That's a pretty clear bottom. And we can go like this. And we can just invert this. So we can look for retracements, right? And look at that, 38.2. So that's why I say this looks like a really solid retracement on the BTC ETH chart, because it pulls back down in this 38.2. I expect it to want to come up and then come up and test this now bearish trend line that we see sort of like right here. Okay, so I'm looking at this and I'm saying probably now is a good time to at least, scale out a little bit of your Ethereum, maybe overweight Bitcoin a little bit more. Not financial advice, but I think ultimately this is a pretty solid move for Ethereum, and I do expect some profit taking into Bitcoin, especially if the altcoin market in total starts to show more signs of weakness. Okay, so let's jump into Bitcoin versus the US dollar now. And let me show you what I'm looking at here in terms of TA. So very clear trend line, guys. This is huge, right? I don't see too many people talking about this either. The significance of this trend line right here, this white one coming through the screen, because we've got 1 point here, right? 1 point here, and now we're kind of just flirting with it right there on the daily chart. So this is a very key level to watch. You can see we're coming down into the 50-period moving average, the blue moving average right here. So as long as we can hold above this and pop out, it still could potentially be bullish. But any break, you can see I'm taking the trend line to the closes right here. So if this starts to fiddle around here and then break this trend line, I do think that the next level will clearly be these tops right here. We know there's a gap on the CME charts as well, right around this 110K mark that has not been closed yet. So I'm watching that carefully. We were anticipating this sell off, right? We know the daily and the 4 hour RSI were extremely overbought, and we're starting to show signs of a divergence, meaning price was starting to come down. Well, price was moving sideways while the RSI was starting to come down. So we knew that we would see this weakness here and this weakness here. And until we can break this sort of descending trend right here, we will not retain bullish momentum higher. Um, but if we can pop out of these and we can hold on to this 50 period MA support, then potentially we can pump higher. But it is going to be very critical. You can see on the volume profile, we're just holding on to this little volume bar right here. And you can see bulls are defending it. But if we slip below it, we can come very, very fast and ferocious down to 110. And then you know what happens when you start to look like that, maybe a retest and then back down to 100K. You can see I have that marked on the screen as well. But still very much around 105 104 is the point of control since this initial break above the 50 moving average. So I'm marking it from the 12th of April. That's where we're taking the volume profile from. So it captures all of this bull run data, and you can still see the point of control around this 105 mark. We remember how long we hung out here chopping around in this range before we pushed higher to 120. And you know it is looking kind of like we might get one of these sort of extended sideways, you know, sideways movements for some time as we sort of reset all the indicators. We get a nice little oversold RSI on the 4 hour. It's already pretty close. The 4 hour RSI is coming in around 35% right now. So we're already getting there. Let me just jump into the 4 hour chart and let me show you what I'm looking at here. So this is a clear picture of the 4 hour chart. You can see this trend line that I drew coming in now, and you can see bulls are really defending this level. So we've been hanging out here for, uh, you know, 12 hours or so around here, closing in on, 14 hours. And, I see some support here as well from a sort of like a descending channel. So we got 1, 2, right? So you can see that support coming in on this descending channel as well. So the 4 hour is very much still in a trading range. We do see volume really picking up at this level around 115K, which is what you want to see. We saw volume increasing in towards the sell-off as well. But right when we get down to these critical levels, we need to see high volume, which is what we're seeing. So I do think that this could potentially come back up into this trading range around 117K. But we know that this 50 period moving average now, it's very downward sloping, right? So there's going to be a lot of pending orders at this level to get out at break even. So there will be resistance at this level as well. Also, a very clear indicator that I'm watching is the RSI bands. So right now we're actually just chopping between the 40 and the 60 levels on the RSI. So you know, still very much a trading range. I think traders will want to take this. If you zoom in even lower towards the 1 hour, you can see that the candlestick patterns are looking pretty bullish. We do see rising volume on these two big volatility candles. So, and you can see the average volume really rising as well. So that usually signals a reversal. And I think that there's going to be a lot of bearish profit taking because of the tightness of this range, right? So we do see also a bullish sort of MACD crossover here, this little blue triangle signaling that it's, starting to the trend is starting to change. We've seen that back here where it showed us a good time to buy, and we've also seen it back here, good time to buy, right back here. So this MACD on the 4, or actually sorry, on the 1 hour can be somewhat reliable for short-term trades. But that's what I'm looking at for Bitcoin. I think we come back up, but there will be heavy resistance, guys. We are seeing, remember, this was clearly a downtrend. I know everyone started to get euphoric and having massive FOMO, but when we see a lower high, right? This is the top, right, at 123, a lower high, lower high, lower high, lower high, right? Just constantly lower highs is a very solid indicator of a downtrend. All right, so that's what I'm looking at for Bitcoin. We have to hold on to this 115K level, and I will be here to update you if anything changes. But for now, we're still holding on to this trend line. Bulls need to get this ground back up, and we need to see this trend line of lower highs really break to the upside. We need to get back above 120. Once we get to 120, it should be game on for the bull market towards Q3 and Q4 of 2025. So that's how I'm looking at Bitcoin. It's going to do it for today's video. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you on the next one.